All right, New York Jet fans, we got breaking news over here. It's never-ending drama from one Jets drive. I tell you, as Aaron Glenn and the coaching staff implement their new accountability system, we got news just about an hour ago that Quincy Williams is benched. A la banca, they said. Get to the bench. And this was revealed to the reporters in kind of a strange way. They were asking him about not getting traded and so forth, and he mentioned something, and at first they missed it. I heard it. I was like, what is he talking about? And then they circled back and confirmed that, in fact, Quincy Williams has been benched. We don't know exactly what that means. We'll find out Friday. Well, they'll try to find out Friday from the coach. And so, it's interesting because Sherwood was already benched in the previous game. People forgot about that because we came back and won. That game started out very weirdly. But Sherwood was not out there. Nobody told anybody that he was going to be benched, and all of a sudden he just wasn't out there with his teammates. And he was on special teams, though, running around on special teams. And then the first quarter or so, he was a la banca. And then they put him back into the game, and then everything was fine, and they asked Coach Glenn about it, and he said, well, that's between me and the player, and I'm not telling you, as is his wont. I do think it's a good thing that Glenn does not share a lot with the media, but at the same time, that's going to get him more scrutiny and scorn and less grace from the media, especially in the absence of wins. But nonetheless, now we have this report that right after the trade deadline, now we're benching Quincy. So we don't know what this means. Is this, another one quarter kind of a thing, or what's going on? But one thing it does tell you, this happened to Tony Adams, got benched. That was sort of a permanent thing with Malachi Moore taking his spot until there was injuries and so forth. But one thing it does tell you, Glenn is not messing around. If you're not doing your job, he's going to bench you. They might trade you. Who knows? We traded Sauce Gardner and Quinnen yesterday, Quincy's brother. Now, why did Quincy get benched? Well, one obvious reason, he's missing 23%, in fact, 23.1% of his tackles this year. And if you remember, when he was on Jacksonville, he was a third-round pick, and the reason they let him go was this very reason, missed tackles. He was around 20% or so. Then he came here doing the same thing, and then he improved over time under Salah and El Brico. So you got to give them credit for that. And Coach Rutenberg gets credit for that, and the player. He improved. But now he's back to his old ways of 23.1% missed tackles. That's way too high. And you can't have that. And I'm pretty sure that's what they're talking about. Our run defense has been horrible. I'm sure the coaches went back and have been scouring the tape, figuring out what the hell's going on. We have a group of players that should be playing better than they have been on defense, and what the hell's going on? And I think they saw probably the same with Sherwood, that these guys are not playing up to their potential. Quincy Williams is a better player than he's shown. Now, he was injured. He's only played in 4 games so far, but 23.1%, that's not going to get it done. You got to be better than that, Mr. Williams. So I don't know. We'll see what this means longer term, but this could be just an accountability thing where Quincy is benched for a half or a quarter or something. Then he comes back and we see if he improves his play, and basically if he improves, the rest of the year, maybe they'll think about signing him to an extension. Why didn't they trade him? If they felt this way about him, well, maybe they didn't get any offers. Maybe they didn't get any offers they felt made sense. We already have 1 million 7th-round picks next year. It doesn't help us to get another 7th-round pick. Really, we're going to have, I think, 3 or 4. By the way, with all this capital we added, we're going to have like 15 picks in the draft, something like that when the comp picks are added in. So it's going to be a very interesting draft season. I tell you that much. But anyway, so that's the big news. We'll see what this means, but I do kind of like it from the accountability standpoint. When you have players who are not performing, there has to be consequences. That was the gripe we had with the previous regime, They never held anyone accountable. They were too friendly with the players. So now we have a regime who's holding them accountable. The uh, the press is going to, of course, ridicule us over this. There's already been tweets by people like Jeremy Fowler saying, you know, this guy Quincy was before the season was highly respected in terms of a poll that he sent out among coaches and stuff. It's like that. That's completely irrelevant. That was before he started playing this year. Yeah, he was that way under Saleh and Albrecht, but hasn't been that way under this regime. So why would you tweet that out other than to tweak the Jets, of course? And that's why these media mongrels, jackals, whatever you want to call them, should not be respected in polite society. They should be thrown out. Get out on your ass. But of course, people don't do that. But nonetheless, that's where we are with Quincy, and that's the way it's going to be. The two attack vectors are going to be, well, if you didn't like him, why didn't you trade him? And the other one's going to be, well, this is a former All-Pro. It's so funny, too, in these tweets. Dick Chimney already has a tweet, All-Pro Quincy Williams, benched. He wasn't playing All-Pros level this year. Like if you make All-Pro 1 year and then you stink the rest of the time, you're forever an All-Pro this and All-Pro that. It's so ridiculous. 10 years ago, a guy made a Pro Bowl. Pro Bowler, so-and-so did this. It's like, that was 10 years ago. Now, with Quincy, it wasn't 10 years ago, but still, he's not playing up to that level this year. So that's what's going on with Quincy here on FSPN, powered by Etch-a-Sketch. Nobody's gotten that one yet. That's a Frankie joke. Sometimes you make a joke for yourself. You know what I mean? Life. Anyways, what's next on the old agenda, Frankie? Well, the injury report. We do have to play a game this week. Last week, it was the old saying from The Wire, you cannot lose if you do not play, if you remember that one. Well, this week we got to play, so we're probably going to lose because so far we've played 8 times and we've lost 7. So now the injury report, however, is pretty encouraging. Kane, Stone Smart, Tyrod Taylor, Mason Taylor, all the Taylors, Jay Tuleve, all full today. And Kane's coming back off of the concussion. So you'd figure he's probably good to go. The big day for concussions, whether you're full or limited on Wednesday, is Thursday. So if Kane and Kiko Mawegowa are full tomorrow, Kiko was limited today, then they're probably going to clear concussion protocol, as long as there is not a return of symptoms, which there usually is not. If you get through one practice and then you're able to get through a second practice with no symptoms, you're usually good to go. So if those guys are FP tomorrow, they're probably good to go. And probably Kiko is getting a starting opportunity. So I think he's going to be pretty motivated to clear the protocol. Not that, you never want to mess with that. And then the big one, of course, Garrett Wilson. Now, Garrett Wilson did return to practice, but he was limited. So I think tomorrow's a big day for Garrett Wilson in terms of whether he's going to play in this game. And certainly if he doesn't play in this game, it'll be the next one. So it's not a big deal in terms of that. We'll just make sure you're 1,000% healthy, Garrett. That's the big thing. But if he's full tomorrow, then I would think he's going to be probably ready to go on Sunday. If he's limited again tomorrow, then certainly you would think they'll probably limit him Friday and probably, call him out for the game on Sunday, just probably to play it safe. I mean, there's really no reason to risk any kind of injury with one of your big people on your team, Garrett, one of our stars. So just, got to be 1,000%. But the good news is he's back to practice. The not so great news, he was limited today. And then the mediocre news, it all depends on what he is tomorrow. If he's limited tomorrow, I would suspect they'll just limit him Friday and keep him out. But you never know. So that's what to look for tomorrow. Tomorrow, big day for them. Now, the Browns, on the other hand, have a longer list of injuries, and probably Isaiah Bond, for example, and Carson Schwessinger, their rookies, one a linebacker, one a wide receiver. They did not practice today, and they, I believe, have a little bit more serious injuries than some of our guys, so they're more likely to be out for this game. Schlesinger, a big loss. He's been playing very well for them, the linebacker, and then Isaiah Bond has not been playing well, but he's a guy who certainly can play well, and they kind of need him to with the wide receiver core that they have. Other people like Shador Sanders was limited with a back. He's the backup quarterback. Tyson Campbell, the cornerback that they picked up in a trade, he was full. Cedric Tillman, their wide receiver that they'd like to have back with a hamstring, he was also full. So let's see if Cedric Tillman coming back can help their wide receiver core in terms of Jerry Jeudy and Dylan Gabriel, because their wide receiver core has been the problem, along with offensive line, for this Browns team that has a lot of talent on it. I keep saying, Andrew Berry did a very nice job of accumulating talent, especially on the defensive side for this Browns team. They just screwed up the quarterback. Sound familiar? And they were fortunate enough to get a truly generational player. They throw that word around. Myles Garrett is a truly generational player. Let's be clear. Some of these other bums that they say are generational, and they're just good or great or Pro Bowlers, Aaron Donald, generational. Myles Garrett, generational. That dude is a monster of all monsters. So I don't know how the hell we're going to stop him, but lots of quick game. Get it out, Justin. Get it out quick. So that's all the news that's fit to print today. Let me know what you think about Quincy Williams a la banca. As Aaron Glenn instilling his culture and his accountability. Sherwood went benched. Now it's Quincy benched. Tony Adams benched. We're going to run out of people to bench. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Never a dull moment in Jetsland. All right. I'll see you next time here on FSPN.